Well, welcome to Anxiety Simplified podcast. I am Joanne Williams, and I'm here to share powerful strategies I've used with my clients as a 30-year mental health professional to lower anxiety simply. We really want to thank you for being loyal listeners. I'm really noticing that, and I really appreciate that as we bring this right into your own home and car. So we hope these strategies will make your life just a little bit happier and less stressed. So I have a special guest today I'm going to introduce in just 1 minute on a very timely subject on how to cope with the struggles of isolation during COVID-19. So the summary of today's show is with our guest, Nicole Cimmarusti, who is a college student at UC Davis in California studying psychology undergraduate. And she is going to actually interview me for her paper on how COVID has impacted people in general and with clients with emotional support animals. So, welcome, Nicole.
Hi.
And maybe you can just kind of start off and share a little bit more about you and why you're doing this article on emotional support animals and on isolation from the pandemic. So, welcome.
Hi. Well, I wanted to do this for my journalism class. And for me personally, I'm a transfer student. This is about my third quarter here. So I've been dealing with the isolation of it and being just online for everything. And I wanted to hear more perspectives on that.
I gotcha. All right. Well, I'm happy to share anything that would be helpful for anyone. So, this could be for students, but it could also be for anybody in the general public. It sounds like that's dealing with isolation and how we can talk about ways to help them. All right. So, I'm going to give it to you and you can interview me.
Okay. Well, my first question is what has been your experience working with emotional support and psychiatric service dogs?
All right. I, like I said in my opening, I've been a therapist for 30 years. And I think it's about 8 years ago now, I was on a plane with my little dog that
Mm-hmm.
was stuffed under the seat. And he was so upset. He was making me so anxious. So, actually, a kind stewardess told me about the emotional support animal program that if you get a letter from a licensed mental health professional
Mm-hmm.
that you need your animal with you, I could fly with him on my lap. So here I'd been a therapist at that point for 20 something years. I didn't even know about this program. So I researched it and I did find that there's federal laws at that time that covered that in housing for emotional support animals. So I got a therapist that I knew that could help me to figure this out. And I got the letter. And ever since, I've had an emotional support animal to fly. And it just really helps for comforting and makes me feel so much more secure to fly. Um, and I'll go on a little bit here too, because the law changed
Mm.
January this year. In the middle of this pandemic, when you're talking about isolation and needing your animal and all the reasons why our animals comfort us, the Department of Transportation changed the regulation so no longer were or are emotional support animals allowed to fly with you. They are considered pets. So they have to be in a carrier, they have to be under the seat. So now to fly, it didn't change for housing. So that's all the same for housing. You can have any kind of animal actually if they help you with the daily functioning and housing. But for flying now, you do have to have a psychiatric service dog. So they're literally service dogs. So they actually have to help with an emotional issue, or they call it an emotional disability. And for example, if you have panic attacks, your dog, and it's only dogs, would need to notice, like recognize, come
Yeah.
over, do something, sit by you, jump in your lap, and that calms you down. So it has to connect, I call it connect the dots between your diagnosis, and the animal has to help with that diagnosis.
What's the difference between a psychiatric service dog and an emotional support dog, and what qualifies one?
All right. So the difference is the different places, number one, that an emotional support animal, by the federal law for fair housing, truly can only be in housing. But it, like I said, it could be any animal. So even if it's a cat, or most are cats and dogs, but it could be other things. If that dog or cat or animal helps you sleep better, if they help you to concentrate better, or maybe help you get out to socialize, they have to help with the daily functioning. So that's for an emotional support animal. And then for a psychiatric service animal, it is a different law. It's under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So what that means is once you qualify, and like I said, with connecting the dots between your diagnosis and the dog helping you with it, then you can take them anywhere and everywhere, restaurants, stores, flying, housing, to school even. They could even go to college classes with you if that's was what one of your issues were. So yeah, it's a broader law, and that's how they can help you.
And how has the pandemic affected the need for emotional support dogs?
You know, it has been really mixed. Because what I saw was, because the airlines pretty much shut down, nobody could fly. And a lot of people, that's how they use their emotional support animal. Business got very slow, especially like March, April, or something like that. It almost died. And then I noticed April, May, maybe June, it picked right up because more people were getting emotional support animal, or getting animals in general, from, the different places, but usually shelters. And they were then coming to realize how important they were in their life. If they had to move, they couldn't stand the thought of giving them up, because now they were really relying on them in this isolation to really be their companion.
Yeah. Have you seen an increase in the demand for certification? And what are the benefits of having an emotional or psychiatric service dog?
Since January, since the law changed for that emotional support animals could no longer fly, that's where I've seen the increase for psychiatric service animals, because people were relying on their animals to fly. I mean, a lot of people have a panic attacks. I mean, they want to jump out of that plane. Their heart is racing so bad. They just want to get out of there any way they can. And with having a dog in your lap or at your feet is something to focus on. They can pet them and it really calms them. So I've had a lot more clients now wanting a psychiatric service dog so that they can fly again. I'm also seeing an increase again in emotional support animal for housing, because again, more people have just went and got animals to be with them as a way to deal with that isolation.
How has the pandemic affected your business of certifying emotional support animals and psychiatric service dogs?
Yeah, it definitely went down last March because of flying. And I'm finding right now that people are very confused about flying and what the regulation is, and they don't know, and they don't understand what trained means to do a task for a psychiatric service animal to fly. So I'm having to do a lot more education. In fact, I'll be doing a webinar tomorrow for some of my clients to really explain that, what it does mean to be trained. But like I said a little earlier, it's like connecting the dots between their diagnosis, if it's panic disorder, to how the animal already kind of comes over and notices and calms them. So I'm finding I really have to do more education and explaining. And I've got to say that the airlines now have a new form that you have to fill out to fly, and it's from the Department of Transportation. And truly, I call it the intimidation form because right at the top, it has this big warning, federal crime. It's like they're going to persecute us if we take our animals with us. So it just is, the wording is very funny.
Mm-hmm.
They have you put your dog's name in there in 11 places. You're called a service animal handler.
Mm-hmm.
It's very odd. And one of the things under the ADA law is that you can train your own animal.
Yeah.
If they come over to you, even by themselves, and maybe you didn't even train them with a treat when you got upset or were anxious, or how to train them, you can do it
Mhm.
yourself. But if they notice and they come over and they jump in your lap, and that helps to calm you
Yeah.
because you have anxiety, that is considered trained. So they put on this Department of Transportation form, they put one of these lines in there that what is the trainer or the training organization that trained your animal, which is
Mhm.
curious to me because I don't know if they don't know the ADA law or that you can train your own animals. So I just feel like the whole form is very confusing. So I have to spend a lot of time actually going through that Department of Transportation form because it does have to be sent in 2
Yeah.
days before you fly. So it's very important people really understand what it means to be trained.
Yeah. And now, how have you been coping with the isolation of the pandemic? And what would you recommend for people struggling right now?
Okay. You know, I think all of us, whether we recognize it or not, we all experience losses
Yeah.
of some kind or another. If it's, not being able to go outside, not being
Mhm.
able to fly, seeing friends, family, or losses of death. So for me, I want to count my lucky stars. No one in my family has died or gotten very sick. What affected me the most was not seeing my grandkids and
Mhm.
my kids for a year and a half. And
Yeah.
I usually would see them twice a year, and they do live on the opposite coast from me. And so, and it's kind of a big deal, but I finally got to see them this month, and they had grown a foot. And I'm not kidding. They had grown a foot. So it was like I missed out on a foot's worth of growth from my
Yeah.
grandsons. And I think that hit me the hardest was just not being able to jump on a plane or go do what you want
Yeah.
and have to stay home, kind of and be good.
Mhm.
So maybe we should go into more what other people can do, because I
Yeah.
think there is a lot people can do. And I feel like we're at a critical juncture right now that the vaccinations are coming or they're here,
Yeah.
and we see a light at the end of the tunnel. However, it looks like we're having a fourth wave. So we really
Mhm.
need to be good and wear masks and maybe stop doing some of the things that we were really hoping springtime was going to bring. And I think it makes it a little harder even to be able to hold off
Yeah.
the feeling of doing more. But what I suggest and what I see is really important, even for life skills, is building some habits every
Yeah.
day to do in your life that will sustain you through things like we've just went through with
Mhm.
COVID-19. There's similar things, that happen all the time. And I think that to me, one of the things that's pretty simple, but I think
Mhm.
people forget to do, is to focus on what it is you want in your life instead of on the drama that is
Yeah.
always going to draw your attention from social media or TV or wherever. They're paying to grab your attention, and instead really resist that and focus. I want to feel healthy. I want to get through this semester. I really
Mhm.
want to have a better job. I want to get that relationship that I've always wanted, and keep that focus on
Mhm.
those things and not let the distractions, take you into another place.
Mm-hmm.
I think something else that people forget about or don't think a lot about is
Mm-hmm.
some really simple things. And that's kind of why I do this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety Simplified, because I feel like there are such simple things that we forget about that can be really helpful, like
Mm-hmm.
smiling.
Yeah.
And there is a smile can change your whole outlook, your whole attitude. And even if nobody's there, Tony Robbins, I don't know if you know him as a motivational speaker, but this was his
Mm-hmm.
technique to just look up at the ceiling and just smile a really big smile. And it changes the way you feel. I mean, in that second, you can change some of these, they could feel like a struggle in your life. So I think there's a lot of things going on that we can
Mm-hmm.
do really simply because we have been disrupted and we have had some struggles this year. And if we continue to focus on those as struggles or barriers, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
continue to feel their struggles and barriers. So I know it's really hard right now to
Yeah.
focus forward on graduation or
Mm-hmm.
on getting to see family or going to the summer, whatever this year. But I think focusing forward can be really helpful as well.
Yeah. If someone's struggling right now and they're thinking of getting an emotional support animal or a psychiatric service animal, what would you suggest? What would your advice be for them?
Mhm. I really think you need to talk to a therapist about it. Don't just go online and find some rando thing about it because there is a lot of scams.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it's really important you connect with that person, your therapist, or if you want to call us, we're always more than welcome to
Yeah.
talk because it's it's important. I mean, I am a therapist for these people who are going to get their animal, and so they have psychiatric or they have psychological symptoms that do need attention. So I always give recommendations. So, as you look for somebody, you can ask your therapist if they know the laws, number one, because if
Yeah.
they don't, they can't really write an effective letter. And unfortunately, my experience is most doctors don't
Mm-hmm.
know anything about this and want to scribble something on a prescription pad and no housing or nothing's going to be able to, they can't use it.
Yeah.
So they can certainly go to our website,
Mm-hmm.
esapros.com, and we have a pre-qualification form that has the actual criteria that you need to have for an emotional support animal, which again, your animal helps to calm, comfort you in situations in your daily life. Or a psychiatric service is a little bit more strenuous, but you do have to have, a diagnosis, and that's what we do. And our evaluation is find that and always give recommendations. But at the same time, the dog has to help with those actual symptoms that
Yeah.
you're experienced to be considered trained to do a
Mm-hmm.
task. So I would say go check it out for the qualification. You can look, you can always Google psychiatric service
Yeah.
dog too and see if you would qualify, but then call somebody and talk to them. And we'll make sure my information is in this podcast and that people can absolutely call me if that's anything they
Yeah.
want to have checked out. And we're happy to talk to somebody to see if they qualify.
Wow. And if someone is struggling with the isolation of this pandemic, but they don't want to get an emotional support animal, what would be your advice to that?
I think that's a really important question because I don't care if you're in college or working right now, or you're older and you're isolated. Every single place and people, they need to connect, and
Yeah.
we're social beings, and we've
Mhm.
lost that. And I really am concerned about younger people because
Yeah.
you have to have, it's like it's a drug almost to
Mhm.
be social, and it's so important to your emotional development, and to not have it, it's really hard. So I would say any way you can to reach out, because I'm afraid more even younger kids than you, that they're going to have some social phobias. They're going to have
Yeah.
more anxiety to go into social situations or social anxiety because they've lost out on a year of socializing to practice and get comfortable. So I think reaching out, and on college campuses, there's always a medical center there that you can go to and talk to a counselor. On the back of everybody's insurance card, there's an 800 number for the mental health
Mhm.
services that you can call for this, services that your insurance company will help pay for. So I think it's really reach out,
Mhm.
because one of the statistics that the CDC put out, it was last May now, but they were seeing that suicide rates were increasing almost double from a couple of years ago. And the 18 to 24-year-old range was the worst. And
Yeah.
they say in about 11% are in severe depression symptoms, which means you can have
Mhm.
suicidal thoughts or thoughts about harming yourself in some way. So it's
Yeah.
really, really important. Do not let those go by. If anybody's feeling stuck, or I say overwhelmed and can't get out of it yourself and feel like you just keep digging the hole deeper and deeper and you're just getting darker and darker, reach out to a professional.
Yeah.
Because what do you know what resources you have on campus and other things that people can do there? Because I think this range of age for you is one of
Mhm.
the most dangerous. So do you know about the resources there on campus at UC Davis?
Yeah. We have the resource to either go to counseling one time, or we can also do 3 to 5 times for
Mm.
counseling. But there has been less access to that. Whenever I try to personally make an appointment with a counselor on, mental health, usually they're booked. So it has been kind of hard to get to access those resources for mental health.
And that's just wrong. I'm sorry. That's just not okay.
Mhm.
Because, most of the time now, which one of the things I found more helpful, this is the way we've been doing therapy. So a
Yeah.
lot of times it's actually easier to get access. You don't have to drive, you don't have
Yeah.
to park, you don't have to take off as much time from work or whatever. So actually it's made it easier. And it's really unfortunate if they're not having other resources. And I would assume probably it's graduate school, but you can be an intern as well and help out with some of those services yourself?
Well, when I look into it, it looks like because of COVID, it's hard to be an intern right now. Same with like hospitals. It's hard to help out in a hospital right now because of COVID.
Yeah, I saw that they were making some exceptions to that. I'm in Florida, and they were really working with it to make
Mhm.
exceptions to that so that interns, because you are supposed to have like group supervision or in-person supervision and
Yeah.
some other things that were needed, or in person with clients. And they did change that so that you could do online or video chat, so that you would not be a whole year behind or half a
Yeah.
semester or whatever behind on doing that. That's unfortunate if they haven't figured that out, because we need you. And
Yeah.
that's the really unfortunate part right now. More and more, actually, the CDC, no, it was the Washington Post, called this a shadow pandemic for mental
Mhm.
health. That at first it is the physical, the sickness of COVID, but the
Yeah.
second wave is actually a psychological pandemic. And
Uh,
that's what we're in right now. And that's
yeah.
what I'm seeing more and more with my clients. I'm having more post-traumatic stress disorder triggered by
Yeah.
some of these events, and more depression. And so I am seeing more severe symptoms with my
Mhm.
clients. So it's not the time to not have more professionals. We really need to have more professionals helping. And as it is, only 40% of people that even have severe depression reach out. So we
Yeah.
are having a lot of people who need these services and that are not receiving them. And
Mhm.
I wish part of this paper, you would do something on community services then. If there isn't something in the community that could be helpful and that they're doing it online, that would also be helpful.
Yeah.
I am telling you, get an emotional support animal. I hear it every single day, especially
Mhm.
single people. I don't know what I would have done if I couldn't talk to my dog,
Yeah.
and I felt like they got a bigger, better connection
Mhm.
having them, as their person there, feels like. And so I think it's really important, if nothing else, get something that you can feel close to, that can comfort you, or find comforts in something other than drugs and alcohol, so that you can build some good habits that can sustain you in hard times.
Yeah. And what are some resources people can go to if they're struggling with mental health right now?
Okay. If you have insurance, definitely on the back of the insurance card to go and call that number.
Mhm.
And on that 800 number, if you want counseling or therapy, you need to ask for a counselor or therapist. If you are looking for medication, you can ask for a doctor, because
Yeah.
generally, if you, and I hear this all the time, I asked for a doctor and then I had to wait 2 months, and I get in there and all they want to do is give me medication. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's what doctors generally do now. It's just generally medication. It's not therapy. So they
Yeah.
get very frustrated with the system. So knowing that can be very helpful. And I want everybody to know there is helplines out
Mm.
there
Yeah.
all over the place that can help. And I really encourage everybody to even put this number in your phone. And
Mhm.
so even if it's not for you, it is for somebody else with you, that you can just hit that phone number and hand them your phone, because it is a depression hotline at 1-800
Yeah.
273 8255. And that way there is somebody always there. So all you
Mm.
would have to do is hit that, and you don't have to fumble around. Oh yeah, what was that number? And you just hit it and hand it to them, because I think more and more we're going to have to support each other
Yeah.
and get us through this, with family, friends, or just talking like this through Zoom.
As a therapist, have you seen that telehealth what have been the challenges and good parts of telehealth for you?
you know, I since I've specialized in emotional support animals, which I
Mhm.
said is about 8 years ago, I've been doing exclusive telehealth.
Hmm.
And it's been interesting that, in the last couple of years, it's been growing. But I see it, and there's a lot of studies now that show it's as effective. I think that was the first thing. Well, you can't see their whatever eyes or whatever. Yes, I
Mhm.
can. I really feel like there isn't a lot of difference, and research is bearing that out. I think the other huge benefit
Mhm.
is that remote places that do not have access, they have access with telehealth. And I
Yeah.
don't know why it's not going to expand and expand and expand. And the problem was insurance was not paying for it.
Mhm.
And I think that needs to change. And some do now. So that is really helpful, so that we can continue to see people in remote areas that our license covers, but that they have access that maybe they never even thought was possible, because they had to drive an hour or something. Who's going to do
Yeah.
that? You can't even afford to take off work. So I think the access is huge, and I haven't really seen it too much of a disadvantage. In fact, I think people are more responsive. I have less no shows. I usually had about a quarter of people not showing for appointments when it was in person. I think sometimes that's an issue too, especially I deal with a lot of people with anxiety, agoraphobia, which is, hard to kind of get out of the house. And sitting with somebody face to face, I was feeling like they're kind of like hide and don't look at me kind of a thing. And I do find with the telehealth around the community that at least they can kind of just look down and, you know, maybe not look at me all the time, but there's a barrier there that actually cuts some of the anxiety about being in the same room or feeling like there's an expectation to say something or do, I don't know. It just seems to me, for the clients that I see, it has worked really, really well. I mean, using technology for people, I think is hard. I think that would be the biggest drawback, that how to get on, we use GoToMeeting because it's secure, but getting on technology would probably be the biggest drawback that I've seen from using it.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions for me?
Well, I guess can ask, do you have any other advice to give? Any more resources? Anything else you want to add on to about emotional support animals, or even people struggling with the isolation of this pandemic?
I think your questions are great. And I think we covered a lot.
Mhm.
And I really try not to overwhelm people with too much information. So I think it's important, maybe re-listen to some of these things. I think another thing that maybe we could say, that there is a lot of free resources out there, like podcasts. I think podcasting and Clubhouse now, Facebook Lives, I do those every week, Saturday at 1. I think there's a lot of free resources. And I think to take advantage of those and don't think they're less than. Really take them in. When I do podcasts, I always try to use strategies and techniques you can take into your day. And I think take them into your day, practice them. Don't think just listening to this is the answer. You have to practice to get better, just
Yeah.
like in any class in school. If you don't do it and practice it, you're not going to get any better to master it. Psychological or others are no different.
Yeah. What about for self-help books?
Yeah, exactly. There is so many out there. And I think if you open them and look for them, one of my favorites, that all-time favorite, is about using your intentions and being clear with those. And it's Asking It Is Given by Esther Hicks. And so there's a lot of good books out there. And I think you just have to, look them up, ask somebody like you're saying here. And so that you can, because you have to resonate with you to see if it's the right one. But absolutely, just pick up one at the library, even if we can even go to the library anymore. Or I guess you have to buy them. But there's a lot out there, I think more than ever. So I would say, again, it's like, reach out.
That's good advice. Well, I think that's all the questions I have for you today.
Okay. Well, Nicole, I'm really glad we could do this and support you in your college classes. And as you really are trying to help people, I really appreciate it. But this is by no means a replacement for therapy or any medical attention. I want everybody to make sure we know that. And always reach out and take care of yourself if you are ever feeling like you want to hurt yourself. And I gave you the number. I'm going to give it to you again to reach out for the depression hotline at 1-800-273-8255, or you can always call 911. Or you can always reach out at Facebook to ask me questions. I'm always happy to do that. And I do my Facebook Live on Saturdays at 1. And you can actually look at other podcasts I've done on all the major platforms, or on anxietysimplified.net, or go to our website, ESAPros.com, for an emotional support or psychiatric service dog evaluation. And you can see right there if you will qualify or not. And just like we said earlier, remember to practice the skills we shared today, really to bring these into your life to feel more joy. And you can contact us anytime with any questions. We're always happy to do that. And join us for our next podcast, which is going to be on the vagus nerve, which by doing a simple breathing technique, you can actually send out a calming chemical into your system. So thank you for listening. We really do appreciate it. And please show your support by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to our podcast. Or share this with somebody that you think it might help in some small way. Bye for now.